this year's World Economic Forum for Africa is under the theme Then and Now, Reimagining Africa. Then and Now, where is Africa today? Well, technology, the question of infrastructure, financing Africa's infrastructural gap, the issue of industrialization, empowering Africa are some of the topics that have been considered here today. Early this morning, there was a discussion on the informal sector. What is Africa's informal sector? Informal now being the new normal. Well, I am joined at this discussion by Winnie Byamima. She is the Executive Director of Oxfam International. She was at the morning sessions. Winnie, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Now, your session this morning was discussing Africa's informal sector, the informal being the new normal. And you did mention there that in a few years, Africa's population of working age will be at about 1 billion. What is the ability, though, of the informal sector to generate jobs?
Well, the informal sector indeed is the normal. The majority of our people work there in the informal sector, and we need to see it as a real hub for creativity, for dynamism. So much goes on there, new technologies, innovation, small and micro enterprises. People thrive, but we also have to understand that the same informal sector, the kinds of jobs there are vulnerable, that people who work in the informal sector lack rights, have very low wages, or even no wages at all.
Right.
So a lot needs to be done for people who work in the informal sector to earn real good wages, to have decent jobs with rights or good incomes.
All right. The other question of multinationals and how much Africa, though, is also losing from non-payment of taxes for multinationals. That was one of the comments that came out of this session as well. Why is there a concern about Africa losing out from taxation from multinationals?
We have estimated, Oxfam has estimated that in 2010 alone, Africa was cheated of $11 billion through just one of the many legal tricks that companies use to avoid paying taxes. That's just to give you a sense of how much revenue Africa is losing. Africa loses a huge amount of resources through tax avoidance and tax evasion. And unless we can plug these loopholes that enable companies to shift their profits to avoid paying where they are making their business and to stash it somewhere else where they are not actually making the business, but where they pay low taxes, we will not develop. So we are calling, Oxfam is calling for all the ministers of finance to go to this conference that's happening in Addis Ababa in July on financing development in the next 20 years and to demand for an international tax body that will establish cooperation,
right,
so that these loopholes are plugged and so that countries no longer have to compete between themselves to give the lowest taxes and to be cheated of the fair share of taxes for development.
Before that loophole, though, is plugged, up until now, though, what is it that African governments are doing to ensure that part of that problem is addressed?
African countries actually have been locked out of a process that has been trying to deal with this problem of global corporate tax rules. There is a project run by the OECD called Tackling Base Erosion and Profit Shifting, where the rich countries have gone quite some way to address this problem of companies cheating on taxes. Africa hasn't been a part of it. But now we are saying that within the UN, Africans should demand a level ground so that they also add their voices there. But Africans also have to do some work at home in terms of establishing progressive taxation. We depend so much on consumption taxes,
right,
which really place a higher relative burden of taxation on poor people and don't collect as much as we should from the big companies that are making the wealth. So I'm challenging the people here, the wealth creators of Africa, to work with our governments to ensure that, one, they invest in sectors that create the jobs for our young people, that they pay their fair share of taxes, that they support policies that will bring about the revenues that the empowerment that young people need to be able to work and produce, and to support